The chicken is at his leisure now. He will help with dinner later. He welcomes us to the home of the Li family on the Niyuan commune outside Peking. 10,000 families live on this commune in homes like this one. And together they grow rice and vegetables for the city, and they build tractors. Mrs. Li fixes a typical lunch of noodles and cabbage. She lives here with her mother and her 6 children. Their father passed away a few years ago. The family is packed into 3 very small rooms. Rent is about $6 a month. Mrs. Li earns $40 a month, plus a stipend for her mother and her children. There is no running water. The lavatories and baths are communal, and they are half a block away. There is enough electricity to power 1 light bulb. No dishwasher, no toaster or TV. What worldly possessions the Li family has can be stored in this chest of drawers. All most families aspire to are a sewing machine, a bike, and a watch. The coal cook stove not only heats the water for tea, but sends streams of hot air through tunnels under the beds. The children sleep 3 to a bed, covered by cotton quilts. But the family seems to be kept warm with the knowledge that former Premier Zhou Enlai is watching over them, and that the hated Gang of Four, which ruled China in the 60s, is no longer in power. 85% of the people in China work in agriculture. Farmers are just now recovering from a disastrous decade. Agricultural production was slowed to a standstill during the turmoil of the Cultural Revolution. The methods they use are as old and as slow as the water buffalo. Three times a year, they plant rice, move it when the shoots are green, and harvest it to provide the basic food of the Chinese diet. Food production, the top priority in the modernization plan. They hope to double the output in the next 10 years. Recovery is slow. Only 1/3 of the farms have mechanized equipment. There are other problems. If this were an American farm, it would be irrigated by pipe which might deliver 18,000 gallons of water a minute. It's not likely this field will get that much water during an entire growing cycle. Some of the workers are here as punishment for supporting the ruinous Gang of Four. Their spirit may not be equal to the task of hefting 40-pound buckets of water across the field 8 hours a day. There are changes being made in the communist system to increase output. Workers are given bonuses if they produce more. Farmers are allowed to have their own land and keep the profits from the produce they raise. Such incentives are working. The 5% of China's land that is privately owned is producing 20% of China's food. This is a state ferry, 3 cents a ride. It carries assorted cargo of bikes, animals, night soil, and commuters who have already put in an 8-hour day and now go home to do personal chores. Without washing machines, even running water, women have to turn to the streams to wash clothes. Not a pleasant task in muddied water, as most of these rivers are. But then neither is it pleasant to drink this water, which some people must do. Rivers also provide fish, moorage for floating homes, plus rich banks along which the boat people raise their crops. There is leisure time, 1 day a week and 2 weeks a year for vacation. Most people spend it close to home. Travel is limited by time, money, and lack of transportation. There's a resurgence of interest in China's historic monuments and parks. In this new, more open China, people are allowed to show respect for the past, while at the same time altering the course for the future. There seems to be an air of hope, even exuberance about the new freedom. We heard people were dancing in the parks, and we checked it out. As is typical in a society where men are allowed to show affection to other men in public, they danced together. But we were not prepared for the welcome they accorded their new American friends. We walked into Bamboo Park in Chengdu, which is in South China, and we gathered a crowd of hundreds that widened to thousands of people. It was the first time I had a real sense of the enormous population in China. They were docile, they weren't threatening, touching blonde hair and the trench coat, things they had never seen before. The guide told me they thought I was a performer from Broadway, so they asked me to dance. Without music, without a common language, we took our first few awkward steps towards friendship. The crowds that overwhelmed us that day became a regular part of our business in China. As far as the Chinese were concerned, we were the story. Their society is collectivist, not individualist like ours, and the people seem genuinely to enjoy serving a good larger than themselves, the commune or the state. They do not have a highly developed sense of self or of selfishness. But they do have this in common with many Americans. They are willing, some even relieved, to let others make political decisions for them. Like the Great Wall outside Peking, the barriers between the United States and China are crumbling. China is reaching to the U.S. for help in feeding her people and developing her economy, hoping to be a modern world power by the year 2000. The plans seem highly ambitious because she is starting that race on foot. But for the first time in 30 years, the U.S. is willing to run with her. I'm Jean Enerson with photographer Phil Sturholm. Good night.